Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That theme always hits me every single time. And here we are. We are back live with another episode of Pony Express Radio. I am your guest host for this week, but you all know me as the amphibian, so that's totally fine. But I am joined by a wonderful panel of guests, intellectuals, and amazing people who work behind the scenes at the Old Glory Club, as well as their own great work. And today we are joined none other than by Mr. Pete Quinones. How are you, sir?
It do be like that.
It do be like that, Mr. Quinones. So true. Alongside me, I am joined by Impressario. How are you, sir?
Good evening. It's nice to be here.
Oh, we're glad you're here. And last but certainly not least, Horatius Rhodes. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Appreciate you having me
We're
on.
very glad to have you two gentlemen on. We are coming off on the heels of the East Coast Forum, and that's why these lovely gentlemen are here to sort of tell us what went down, how things were, and what a wonderful event that other Old Glory Club chapters are organizing and hosting on their own. So remember, if you're not a member of the Old Glory Club, you really are missing out on not just a network of fraternity of like-minded individuals, but Americans who actually want to get things done and organize and talk about these issues and implement plans of action. So let's start there. The East Coast Forum. What was the theme that we had laid out for this discussion?
The theme of this event was the charge before us. And the purpose of the gathering was, of course, first and foremost, to engage in fellowship and socializing with like-minded people. But it was also to feature a range of speakers to elucidate on sort of the founding principles of this country and where that should take us in the future. Basically, the moral obligations we have to ourselves and to our fellow Americans and setting the course for what the future of this country will be.
Feels very much in line with the conference we had earlier this year about the road ahead for us. So I'm glad that everyone kind of recognizes that we're not really in the driver's seat, but there are a lot of obligations to be held behind, or really held before us. And I think that's a very fitting title. I love our graphic work that we have for the speakers panel. We saw similar stuff like that at the national conference, and it just always looks so good. What were some of the key takeaways or the themes that you heard in some of the talks that were given at the conference?
Well, Paul Fahrenheidt, he gave a most excellent speech on our obligations to uphold and sustain our American empire, when we do gain positions of prominence within our society. My speech was on the historical and contemporary reality of fascist societies and why it is foolhardy to draw inspiration from the failures of Europeans. And George Bagby's speech was centered very much on the individual obligations you have as a man in America to lead and seek to build authority within your own realm. And Will Tanner's speech was a sort of celebration of the pioneer spirit of Virginians.
It sounds like I missed out on a really good time. I mean, Will Tanner is an amazing get. The stuff he does over at the American Tribune is fantastic. Horatius, were you there also at the conference?
Yes. So I was helping organize the event. Did a lot of networking there and kind of shored up the event security while I was there. For me, one of the main takeaways was just how great the networking was. In addition to the four main speeches we had, we instituted breaks between every speech and then additionally our meal breaks. And those were all fantastic opportunities to network both with other Old Glory Club chapters as well as other aligned groups such as the John Birch Society who were in attendance. There were a lot of great conversations had and a lot of ideas kind of kicked around between the various chapters. It was very white pilling overall.
Unfortunately, I did miss out on almost all of it because I was very, very busy. Apart from being a speaker, I was also responsible for coordinating catering. I was recording video speeches and audio. I was taking a few stills and, of course, coordinating with other organizers, making sure the whole thing was running smooth. for Will Tanner's Q&A section after his speech, and for the panel that we hosted too. I barely saw any of it. I did very little socializing. Part of that too was because the weekend previously I had come into within a 20-yard radius of young children, and so I had developed a very nasty sore throat this weekend. And that put a real damper on my mood, but I powered through it.
Yeah, I think Pete and I can definitely relate to that white pilling feeling, Horatius. Every time that we go to one of these events, whether it's with the OGC or other sort of like-minded friends, it's always amazing to have that feeling of just like you're not alone. I mean, that is one of the biggest impetus for why we decided to even establish this, was to let people know that you're not alone, and that anywhere in the country, there are people who share a like mind and want to actually get things done. Orrin McIntyre had said at the national conference that one of the reasons why he likes these sort of smaller conferences is that the people in the room actually want to discuss these ideas and how would you implement them, both as a political strategy and formula, but also just to examine some of the big themes for what is the American tradition and what are Americans these days trying to do and to fix the issues that lie before us. So, the road ahead and the charge before us, these are very complementary themes for conferences. So I'm very glad to hear that it went well. Was there anything else that I think that you guys want to maybe discuss, maybe some experiences in organizing events like these? Are there any sort of tips or learning experiences that you can share?
Ooh, yes, it was a learning experience. There's a few things I can share. As far as organizational things go, I would say most important thing is secure a venue very early on, and try to secure a catering option very early on, so you have that squared away, because those are going to be what eat up the lion's share of your budget. Beyond that, I would encourage you to have a very clear vision for your event early on, how you're going to promote it, who you're going to promote it to, and what sort of size you're shooting for. The format that we went for resulted in a very personable experience for everyone involved. It was very easy for people to mingle throughout and get to talk to other people, and get in a edgewise word with all of their favorite e-celebrities in niche dissonant right spheres that they wanted to speak to. And that's one part of it. Another part of it is beyond the conference itself. You have, of course, all of the socializing happening around it. So the conference was just one day. Outside of that, people were showing up in DC the evening before just to explore DC with friends and to socialize and to engage in libations. The evening before the conference, I hosted a dinner for speakers and organizers and officers of Old Glory chapters at the venue where a later after party was hosted too. I'm very satisfied with how that worked out. I did not have my voice at full capacity, so I could barely speak to anyone, but it was great getting people together in a space like that to have in-depth, heartfelt conversations in a setting that was just in a beautiful part of Virginia. It's truly a gem among gems of this country. I would never be able to afford a home there unless my business takes off in the future. But it's something certainly aspirational about having your venue in such a location. And that's what we shoot for. We want to be able to inspire people. We want to be able to get people together to have meaningful conversations on the topics that truly matter. And it's like Quinones said just a few days before the conference, you cannot organize with people you have not built social capital with. And that's truly at the heart of what these events are put on for. It's to build that social capital. It's to lay the foundations for effective, meaningful organization down the road.
Yeah,
Well, that's one.
Horatio. Yeah, go ahead,
Let me
Pete, go ahead.
let me just insert something real quick there. People ask all the time. It's you tell people get off the internet and do something. You're like, well, where do I start? Well, one of these events. Just go.
Just show up.
No excuses. Just show up. You're going to talk to people. People are going to want to talk to you. A lot of people who go to these events, spend, most of their time talking to other people on the internet and chat. People are just dying to talk to each other there. And it gets, so I've gone to 2 conferences now with Dave the Distributist, and I still haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to Dave the Distributist because you just get so busy talking to other people and yada, yada. And if you want to know where to start, go to an event and meet people, exchange numbers, exchange numbers, exchange, friggin' screen names, do something. Just really get off the internet. I mean, come on.
You reach out a hand, you'll be surprised at those who will grab it and shake it firmly and look at you with warmth and sincerity in their eyes. And you'll know you'll find a friend.
And
Absolutely.
just I'm sorry, one more thing, and just for people like somebody Daryl Armentrout in the chat said for the ticket price, I don't think you can find a better value. Those ticket prices are high for your benefit. I'll just leave it at that. It benefits you to go to an event where if the ticket prices are high, there's a better chance you're going to have a good event. And I'll just leave it at that.
I will say too, part of the reason for our high ticket price of, I believe $200 was the location we had selected was in Nova, which is a notoriously expensive location to select for any conference of this type, because you're competing with weddings for it. And the Nova region, DC region, is the premier location in this country for weddings, full stop. Which is also why catering is extremely expensive. So we have some ideas for how to make things a little more affordable for next year. Yes, there is going to be a next year. So keep October open in your calendar. You won't want to miss it. But as far as value goes, you're not going to find this caliber of men anywhere else. I'm sorry, you just won't. It's worth it.
Just to add on that, a lot of the networking and socialization, it leads to a lot of business being conducted. At least in my own experience, with the Nathaniel Green Society being as large as it is, we had other chapters coming up to us and talking about conducting, joint events. There was a Virginian wanting to plan some joint events at Appomattox, for example, likewise with the South Carolinians. And I saw that sort of thing being or going on with other men as well, planning, hey, you're in Maryland, I'm in Philadelphia, let's do something at one of the battlefields. A lot of that business it's a little harder to conduct online because you're not getting that face-to-face interaction, whereas at this convention you can just go up to each other and shake hands and get down to it. We had a lot of good interactions with the John Birch Society, planning out some cross collaboration with them and other groups as well. You really can't beat that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, as we've said for years now, that the best way to get started is to get out and to do things. And while it's also memed by the White House that you can just do things, still in America you can actually just do things, and these are the things that you can accomplish. For those who might be also listening, Horatius, you were the one who were doing a lot of the organizing and planning and vetting. What about you? What on your end? What were the lessons learned there?
So I won't overstep my bounds. The primary organization of the event was handled between Mr. Zinrath and Mr. Harvey Wallbanger. My particular job was heading up security. So luckily for this event, we had no issues whatsoever. But we spent a good while planning out, where are we going to do this at? How close do we want it to be to the belly of the beast? Which we ended up doing it a good ways out of DC, as well as vetting who comes, who does not come, what groups we're going to allow. We had a very strict no phones, no recording policy, which we followed, and that's fantastic because it allows for a lot more conversation, and a lot more of a just interpersonal atmosphere. Beyond the security considerations, not allowing phones in a event forces people to actually talk to each other. So there are a lot of considerations like that, and I think all the decisions we ended up making, for the most part, everything went well.
Any of the any good lines or anything that maybe we should bring to more national attention that was discussed at the conference?
Well, on that point, the speeches will be published either in article form or in audio form in the coming weeks.
Well, then I'll be sure to keep an eye out there. Where am I going to be able to find these speeches when they come out?
On the Old Glory Club Substack.
Well, there you go. Another more reason to subscribe to the Old Glory Club Substack. Not only do you get access to 3 articles a week, one paywalled every Friday for your viewing pleasure and to support the organization and its ongoing efforts, but also because you're going to get a myriad of ideas, both policy proposals, you'll get short fiction, you'll get breakdowns of what's going on across the country, local politics, as well as national issues. So if you want an all-encompassed editorial, that would be the place to go. So I'm really looking forward to reading those speeches and listening to those talks. Those are always a pleasure when I get to see what other people are discussing or what comes to mind, and what a great topic too. But with that, gentlemen, I'm really glad to hear that the East Coast Forum was a success. So I hope that you two gentlemen will stay on as we go through the news and answer our lovely audience questions throughout the way. But what a weird week it's been, because you often hear so often on Twitter that there's a poster to policy pipeline for things like that, and Twitter has become the place for red meat to the online base, and boy has it ever. So as the president of the United States has currently traveled abroad to meet with President Xi Jinping in China, he has often been touting over the course of the last 9 months of his administration that he has been overseeing the ceasefire or the total cessation of hostilities online, and that includes ones that are near and dear to every millennial's heart. And one of such things, of course, came from GameStop. GameStop, of course, has been in the news for the last several years due to what I can only call is the little guy, decides to hold on for dear life, and with everything when it comes to stonks. But GameStop put out a lovely publication talking out that the console wars are over. It's no longer something we have to worry about with Xbox versus PlayStation. It's no longer Sony versus Microsoft. In the era of cross-play and cross-platforms, it's over. And the White House decided to have their fun with that this week. And they decided that this is another notch in the president's belt for victory for all of us. So for those who grew up with the console wars, whether it was Sony versus PlayStation, or Sony and PlayStation versus Microsoft and Xbox, or Sega versus Nintendo, it's over now. You can rest easy, Patriot. The game is won. But of course, the White House had their fun with it, and I think as our producer here will show us in the back, our lovely intern, the White House had fun with that. So I thought this was so wonderfully timed because 343 Studios decided to put out their remaking Halo Combat Evolved from 2001, and now left-wingers get to have their media literacy and eat that crow. So here we go.
I'm just going to put it out there. Gamergate won.
It's funny. I posted that while I was on the timeline. I said, I remember in the first Trump administration, Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, had said, Trump should just tweet Gamergate once and not say anything else about it. I think this is the closest equivalent to what you're going to get out of Carl's wishes. And it's certainly odd to see that take place here. But my timeline has been nothing but There's a great tweet by a friend of mine where he says, all left-wing media literacy is just simply saying, my favorite character is gay and agrees with all of my politics. So to see them, screech and to react for once, about their favorite games or their movies being taken away from them. It's nice to see on the timeline. I always appreciate a little bit of salty liberal tears. I've not gotten tired of drinking those tears since Election Day 2016. I'm really just going to enjoy it for the rest of my life. But our Charlemagne had made a very good point. Member of Central, a great writer and a contributor to the Old Glory Club. He does so much work behind the scenes. I cannot give him my praises enough. But he had pointed out very clearly, every time they get mad that you take something from them, don't forget what they've taken from you. And I think this is important to consider. The Robert E. Lee statue, like that. Everything that took place in Charlottesville, everything that's taken place over the last several years in politics, this is what they want for you. They want your legacy and your history and your heritage burned and melted and cast away into outer darkness and into a void to be replaced by. And as Charlemagne says here, they'll never recover from this. We can destroy anything they want, and we just have to post this image to justify it. And Charles is absolutely right. There are so many records, so many statues, so many memorials, so many great names and things like that have been destroyed by the left for the sake of progress and for the sake of erasing American history and heritage that, I think they don't have a choice. Fuck them. This is our justification. If you can destroy the things that matter to us, I have every reason to destroy everything you stand for. It's that simple. I cannot make peace with evil, and I'm not going to make peace with the people under this democratic guise of coexistence. That if my history is subject to being, put forward to damnatio memoriae, then sorry, I'm not going to go with that. Make no peace with it. And we should destroy every last institution that they have for it, every last idol, because that is what they have. The left is idolatrous, plain and simple. And that's all that they've got going for it. And there are countless other statues that they've destroyed and other aspects of American history that just justifies every little thing that pisses them off.
They will wear the Constitution like a skin suit and hollow it out from the inside.
I like what you said about destroying what the left has built up. But I think it's important to note that the left does not build. When we talk about anything really, but particularly the example of games, the entire leftist media literacy phenomenon, like you said, revolves around let's make this character gay. It's not let's make this. It's let's take something that is iconic and let's pervert it in some fashion. It's just important to point out that they do not create; they just simply pervert and destroy.
I want everyone to remember that when it came time to tear down the statues and do this, the conservatives were nowhere to be found. And when we win, Abraham Lincoln's memorial is going to be replaced with the John C. Calhoun Memorial. And Francis Parker Yockey statues are going to be standing. Let's remember, it's very easy to look and see the left as the enemy. But the conservative will always be 10 times worse because that's the one that's going to stab you in the back and get you canceled. They're the one they're going to be the one leaking from the group chat. And they're going to be the ones to see that you die an early death like Sam Francis. So let's not forget why the left has been in power for so long. Because a feckless, cowardly conservative won't stand up and push up and promote and get elected someone to their right, where even a moderate Democrat will get elected somebody far to their left. That's all.
It's really important to consider all that too. Let's remember where we were 10 years ago, where the highlights of sort of the conservative establishment were rallying against, you don't have to like Trump, but Trump sort of did open the doors and rode on the wave of a paleo-conservative or a actually right-wing position, and it rose. And so, for the 70th anniversary of the National Review, the author decided to attack in this article Phyllis Schlafly, who you don't have to like Phyllis Schlafly. You can say, oh, it's a woman or whatever. I do not care. Phyllis Schlafly, and along with Ronald Reagan, are some of the reasons why the Equal Rights Amendment is dead. And her legacy, her, a lot like Pat Buchanan, she was right about a lot of things, and a lot of the words that she said went unheeded. But Phyllis Schlafly died in September of 2016, before I think she could even vote for Trump. But her last act, along probably with a ghostwriter, I'm sure, but her last public act was to endorse him. And everyone else, the National Review, and everyone else that she had worked with her entire life, more or less, threw her to the curb and went against him, and went against the things that Phyllis stood for, and stood against the things that you and I stand for. So, yeah, Pete's absolutely right. The conservative movement has no problem turning its guns into a circular firing squad, making sure that they hit anyone that's further to the right than Jonah Goldberg. And that's going to be how it's always been, whether it's in this age, whether it's during Phyllis's prime, whether it's during Bill Buckley's prime. Like those are just the things that we have to deal with in consideration. And you can see this now, where you can go, and someone pointed this out, Nancy Mace had described what marriage is between a man and a woman, but had no problem in 2021, pointing out how she was happy that the Carolinas were celebrating Pride Month. These are important things to consider. Like, no one's ideological pride. I get it. People's priors change. But the conservative has no problem adopting what is fashionable, what is edgy, what is sexy, only for the moment you go a little too far or actually represent the United States of America, that then the brakes have to stop. The party has to be over. And I think that we're witnessing that here in the United States as well. The American Republican Party, American conservatives, the conservative, the capital C conservative, has no problem following the same route as the Tories, either in Canada or in Britain. Because as we've witnessed now, there's been a greater emphasis on the subcontinent as a political voting bloc and faction in various states and tech hubs in the United States. And they're in positions of Department of Justice. And I think that that's a really important thing to consider here in this instance. So the conservative has no problem looking at the failure of every other conservative institution in the world, especially in the Anglosphere, and saying that's the example that we want to follow. This urge for post-Trumpism, to go back to this multiracial working class fantasy, is exactly what's happening. And I know that it's a giant leftist wall of text, but this is a tweet from Harmeet Dillon, who is the woman in charge of the Civil Rights Division under the Department of Justice, under this administration, mind you. And while we have witnessed wave after wave of unlicensed people who can't speak English with illegal CDL licenses from California and other blue states, most of them, of course, either of subcontinental background or descent. Harmeet Dillon, as our friend James Kirkpatrick likes to say, everyone's a nationalist for the people they actually like. And she goes out to defend her co-ethnics and her co-religionists in this long, lengthy point of text. And that she basically threatens to use the power of her office to go after anyone who is anti-Sikh or anti-Indian. So the similar kind of coalitions that we've seen built out in Britain as well as in Canada, the same thing's playing out right here, right now. And these are the important things that we have to look at.
Never gets old.
It never gets old.
Good Lord.
What's most important when you see her put something like this out is to go into the comments and see who the quote unquote right wingers are that are going after her and disagreeing with her, or retweeting her and disagreeing with her. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not going to be a lot. And I'm talking about people with power. I'm not talking about, your quote unquote influencers or things like that. I'm talking about people with power. I think everybody remembers that when Dave Rubin announced on Twitter that he was buying a couple of kids, how many right-wing, like people with power, like Ron DeSantis's press secretary and people like that, were all like, "Oh, congratulations. And it's like, yeah, guys. Yeah.
I made this point election night 2024 that not only is the election or the re-election of Donald Trump a opportunity for us to reclaim American democracy, to reclaim American future, but it is importantly also a opportunity to reclaim American history. none of which includes any Sikh or any Punjabi or anyone from the subcontinent at all. They've had no role at all in our country historically. It is only very, very recently, in the past few decades, where they have had any presence worth speaking of. And all of a sudden, they own all the motels in America. What gives?
Every day I go to work and I deal with these people. And then every time I try to go to my county GOP meeting, I deal with these people. They're infiltrating every aspect of life, particularly in North Carolina and in our cities. And the Indians in particular, more so than any other group, are making a concerted effort at taking over county and state GOPs. Because the only other people in county and state GOPs, at least here in the South, are boomers and women, both of which love immigrants, and they want in true conservative fashion, they prioritize non-white voters, and any shade of brown they see walk in the door, they will place into a county office. It's all just so tiresome.
I'm reminded of an old joke of what do you call the one black guy at the Republican party convention, and it's Mr. Chairman. There is always a desire to seek this progressive or liberal approval. You don't have to. You do not need the approval of people who hate you. That is the mentality of a defeated person. It is the mentality of a slave. You do not need the approval of people who hate you. And seeking that approval illustrates that you already know who your master is, and it's subservience. And it's certainly not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And since Christmas Day, literally Christmas Day, on the nativity of our Lord, whether it was Vivek or Elon and countless others, they have shown their hand that this is the issue that they want for them. And nothing has been more nakedly obvious than to utilize every institution, every cutaway, every gib to make sure that they have an advantage over you, and so that they can hire more of their friends, more of their family, and to cut you out of the picture, period. It's that straightforward. And as much as they want to have this coalition, we've known throughout history, especially during the 1960s and 70s with neoconservatism, that the needs of Americans is always sacrificed for the needs of the newest group in the coalition. And it has been more present now than ever, whether it's on the issue of H-1B reform or individuals like Matt Forney who have gone to literal office buildings where 20 to 30 companies will be registered to have an address there with no one actually working there or no one present that represents those companies that are all IT consulting firms to getting contracts because, someone hired them to do it who happens to look like them or speak the same language, all here in the United States. And in fact, some of the biggest accounts that have been doing this, whether it's Aesthetica or others, they'll happily be ignored or blocked by individuals like Harmeet Dillon. Keep in mind, this is the same woman who did the Sikh prayer at the Republican National Convention, and you just had hundreds, if not thousands, of white faces wondering what the hell is this. And so this kind
well,
of,
I mean, they
yeah.
did that because they thought that Donald Trump wasn't going to be there.
Of course,
Yeah.
2.5.
The only chapter of American history that I want to read to my children that mentions any subcontinent denizen is the Great Removal. And I'm really hoping we can strive for that before it's too late.
2.5 years ago, I returned to the United States, made a permanent move here after living most of my life overseas. There is no large cohort of my co-ethnics to get me into a position of power or influence. There are no SBA loans that will allow me to buy a gas station. I have to pay my own way. I have to make it on my own. I wish for the kind of ethnocentric behavior we see from the subcontinentals for my people.
it really is that straightforward. And I mean, it's sort of I'm a fan of entrepreneurial spirit. I do a lot of work on the side on my own. I do a lot of grant writing on the side for people who ask. I've done, some consult in grant education for members of the OGC. I worked very closely with Mr. J. Ford on the grant application process for disaster relief. I have a whole disaster relief article on Substack with the OGC if you're interested when it comes to disaster funding and how it works. But a lot of people, I think, in America have been thoroughly deceived under the guise of either economic growth, trade relations, or even just capitalism as a catch-all term. That your replacement and ethnic cartels taking advantage of you is just how the system works. And I get that that's how it is right now, but that's not what the American system looks like. That is not what we've got going on here. And I think that that's really important for us to sort of examine when it comes to looking at this. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Well, on the topic of supporting our friends, we had 2 vendors present at the East Coast Forum. One was MS Vendrillo, our haberdasher tailor friend, who was there with his magnificent display of suit jackets, ties, accessories. Another was Confederate Shop. They had a presence too, and they had accessories, historical items, and books for sale. And one of our speakers was, of course, George Bagby, who is the owner and proprietor of tallmenbooks.com. If you are into fine works of literature that celebrate American heritage, check out tallmenbooks.com. If you specifically have an interest in Southern history, confederateshop.com. And if you want to look great for the seasons, MS Vendrillo in Hartford, Connecticut. Get suited up, you'll look smashing. As for myself, if you want to support my work, I also run a photography business. It is impressive.com, spelled with 2 M's. But really, I'm a boat builder, and that's a business I hope to get into again soon. So if you're looking for an aluminum boat, reach out to me.
Oh, I think Pete and I can both speak to MS Vendrillo. We've both ordered stuff from them, and their craftsmanship is just impeccable. So
I will be wearing mine at the upcoming events very soon.
Yes, I have quite a few things from them as well I'll be wearing. So also Confederate Shop is great. I have the same necktie that Harvey Wallbanger has now. I love it. I wear it as often as I can.
Fantastic tie.
It's an amazing
my go-to wearing to church.
But before I get too far into it, there are quite a few super chats right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and read through them. That way we're not here all night at the end. But we are going to start off. Our first chat of the night is from Solid Sake 1964 for $10. He says, "Good evening, gents. I hope you all stay safe during the snappening this weekend." I love that title already, the snappening. Take that straight from the MCU fanboys and put it straight to the real issue at hand. I'm glad my local butcher shop is locally sourced, that's for sure. Don't think much of anything will happen in my neck of the woods, but be vigilant and have a happy Halloween. Is anyone wearing costumes or doing anything? And then he sends a salute.
So I will say on that subject, I will be doing a very serious stream with a friend of mine, former intelligence officer in the U.S. Army, on Saturday, where we're going to be covering some realistic scenarios for what will happen, some timelines, and then some considerations for yourself and your family utilizing some military intelligence techniques. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I'm not much of a Halloween guy these days. Although I will probably do my usual of probably either rewatching John Carpenter's Halloween or a different sort of spooky film. That's usually what I do. But yeah, I'll carry on. Christopher Burks for $2 says, "The nog must flow." I really do appreciate, because it threw me off guard, the social media team on the OGC Substack or the OGC Twitter had so we have a special announcement at 1:30, and I felt like so out of the loop. I immediately went to like the guys in Central, and I was like, "Hey, did I miss something at the meeting that was not important?" And they had this great pro eggnog post, and I'm pro eggnog as well. So the nog must flow. I agree wholeheartedly. Bolero 393 says, "A Texan, a white Hispanic, a Swede, and a regular American, a fantastic lineup." Well, we are. This is the only diversity that really matters is American diversity, and it is exhibited right here in its purest form. Pro-American, pro-heritage. That's simple as. Don Browning is very generous with $20 Australian, sending a super sticker. It just says, "You are amazing," written around it. Well, Don, we greatly appreciate it. And we think that you're amazing for supporting the work that we do from down under. Kyle Linsogs sends $10 just for a salute. Thank you, sir. We salute you right back. Seasider for $10 says, "Happy Halloween. Has anyone gone to a Hallelujah house? Cringe or based?" I have no idea what he's talking about, gentlemen.
Never heard of that, and I live in a very heavily Southern Baptist area.
I was like, same. I'm surrounded by Baptist churches. I actually have no idea what that is.
A Hallelujah house sounds like something you'd see out of a mega church outreach program.
I'm literally looking it up now. I have no idea. The
We
Hallelujah
talked
house.
last.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say last week we talked about how there's an NGO out of LA, out of California, that's registered now as a foreign agent, and they're setting up 10 October 7th experiences in trailers so they can take them to evangelical churches around the country, so evangelicals can get the experience of what our greatest ally went through on that fateful day.
Oh.
Keep my mouth
Unless
closed.
unless this is like a really obscure King of the Hill reference for me. I'm not getting it. I'm looking it up and I'm like, well, there's a Christian creator. I'm assuming the Hallelujah House is the King of the Hill reference, and it just took me a hot minute to go get it. Nevertheless, if those things are real nowadays, good, more power to them. I guess it's good to remind people of what they'll have to deal with. I'm going to carry on here real quick. Not Grim for 199 says, "Power to the Poggers." Well, I suppose so, but this isn't Twitch chat, sir. John Calhoun says, "From the brothers at the Silver State Collective in Nevada." Well, if you are interested in finding like-minded Americans and those who want to make their state a better place, the Silver State Collective in Nevada is a great place to go to. And then our winner for the night so far, at least, is from Ski Bum 220 for $50 American. That is an incredibly generous amount for the evening. You are the winner so far, sir. He says, "I'm listening from a hotel midway through a road trip to visit family. Every time I go on a road trip, I'm amazed at how beautiful this country of ours is. We are going to win." I totally agree with that, Ski Bum. When I drove to the Old Glory Club National Conference in Tennessee this year, and I genuinely was driving through the hills. I took a long way to leave the venue to drive back to Texas. And I paused and I snapped photos, and I really felt like, maybe the Mormons got a point where the Garden of Eden might be. This country is so beautiful. And I mean, I'm sure you guys who held the East Coast Forum can relate to that. I mean, Northern Virginia is gorgeous, and the entirety of this nation, from all of its biomes and its locations. This is the most beautiful place on God's green earth, and we are truly blessed to have it.
I will say we could not have picked a better time to host the East Coast Forum, because late October is the peak of the leaves changing colors in Virginia. And on the drive home, at least for me, rather than taking the interstate, my fiance and I decided to take a little detour through rural Virginia along Route 17, which, if any of you ever get the chance, that drive throughout the various peninsulas of Virginia in late fall is beautiful, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I agree.
Route 17 is just a fantastic drive overall, and it has a bit of a special place in my heart, because first time I drove down Route 17, I figured, hey, I'm just going to take the back roads, drive along the countryside. And there were no cars out there, and after about half an hour of driving down that road late at night, it's dark out, it occurs to me, these white dashed lines I'm seeing, in Europe, they're roadway dividers, and here, they're lane dividers. And I realize I'm driving on a divided highway out in the middle of nowhere. You'd never see that. You'd never see that in Europe. It's a uniquely American experience to have such great highways connecting small towns of 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3,000 people.
Yeah, it really is something else. But we'll carry on with our headlines before I get to the rest of the super chats here. I mean, this has really been an interesting week of discourse on Twitter, but I want to carry on real quick on the same issue we were before we stopped for some super chats. There was quite a disturbing realization, or not even a realization. It was definitely something that really stuck out to me. That in the midst of these ongoing fights that we're currently having, whether it's about our relationship to various countries in the Middle East, our position under, as a geopolitical power dealing with the Chinese or the Russians, there really is a fight at home, just as there is with every election victory that the Republican Party has. There's always a fight for positions, for jobs, for the ideological direction the country is going, and those who actually want the country to survive. We saw this, of course, with people like Sam Francis and Bob Whitaker when they were talking about the new right in the 1980s. We saw the same thing with Pat Buchanan when he wrote about where the right went wrong in 2004. It's the most scathing indictment of the Bush administration I've ever read in my life. And we're sort of watching the same thing happen now, whether it's the odious label of woke right, which seemingly the only person who's ever really used that phrase publicly has been Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But at the same time, now in the midst of rapid concerns about H-1B abuse and the ethnic nepotism that is afforded to everyone but Americans, I saw that a lady named Ellie Konanim, who was the special envoy to combat anti-Semitism under President Trump 45. She currently now works as a senior fellow with Independent Women. Really tells you where her politics might be. But she had hosted a lovely little forum, apparently, that was the American Hindu Jewish Congress first annual gala at Mar-a-Lago. This was just earlier this week on October 29th, with Laura Trump giving a keynote address. I noticed, however, that the the replies have been immediately shut down, which I'm not really surprised by, to say the least. But for those who have studied history, at least when it comes to American political movements and American conservatism, there's always this fun relationship that various groups will take on in order to solidify the advantages of either the civil rights regime or just to solidify their position in American conservatism and to keep their block. This is already on top of the fact that since October 7th, 2 years ago, the left has been in disarray of its own internal civil conflict of how to deal with wealthy, white, often Jewish money that supports progressive causes, and then to witness the various people that they've supported through Black Lives Matter and judicial reform turn against them, despite the golem-like irony out of all of this. We're witnessing the same thing happen again, that as America, and especially as conservatives and right-wingers, actual Americans are standing up for themselves in a way that is explicitly identitarian, that now all of a sudden we are witnessing the formation of groups and alliances that are going to try and keep that suppressed or squished. And it's no surprise that Hermeet Dillon is basically threatening that kind of policy. Those who go against H-1B fraud are often mass reported on Twitter or doxxed or demonetized. And we're witnessing the same thing again. Daryl Cooper did a great series on a very hard to find book published in 1995 called What Went Wrong? The Creation, the Collapse of the Black-Jewish Alliance. My friend Dimes and I have covered that book as well. And it sort of echoes the same sort of political alliances that get made for the sake of advancing their own interests in the American political system. And we're witnessing the formation of that as well. Pete, have you read that book by chance?
I have not, but I've listened to that series three or four times, so I'm familiar with what's in the book.
I mean, it's an amazing book. I found a hard copy of it at a local bookstore in my neck of the woods that was going out, and I felt like a barbarian sacking the libraries of Rome. It was I'm so glad I found it. It's a really important read. But the whole book kind of boils down to, like, we did all these things for them and they hate us now. But in this regard, it's sort of the same thing, that a new political alliance is being made. Notice that Stephen Miller is not here, and notice that the vice president's not there either for this, but this is President Trump having a Diwali celebration. I don't know. I mean, I believe it's some sort of festival of light over dark for Indians. I'm not familiar with it. I only know about it because I live in Texas, and they changed the laws so that the fireworks stands are open now for this holiday, which just goes to show how much things have changed demographically in Texas. But it is a par for the course. Like I mentioned earlier, the I not to be too crude, but like the Pagetification of conservative politics in the Anglosphere has kind of finally come to the United States, and we now have Canada and the United Kingdom to look as examples for what that looks like, and it's not a pretty picture. Pete and I both have friends who were doxxed and had their businesses targeted for speaking out against Indian immigration and wanting their children to grow up in a country that is for them and not for India. And nevertheless, like, this is the kind of thing that we're seeing here. So as much as there are things that I appreciate that Trump has rode in on and brought to the national consciousness, there are still so many things more that need to be addressed and corrected. And we need to, as Oren McIntyre likes to say, like, this is where you chimp out and this is where you make your voice heard. Because the more we do this kind of crap, the more that we have to make special carve outs for people that will happily take advantage of you and fire you over a Zoom call so they can hire more of their friends.
You need to chimp out, and you need to chimp out at all levels, whether that be online, at the national stage, even all the way down to your county level. Whenever these people come in force and they try to bring their culture with them, to give an example, to start putting cricket fields in your county, you and your boys need to go and chimp out and block that from happening. Because if you don't, the GOP is going to celebrate it as they do. So you need to have a broad spectrum.
It never
shouldn't find that
gets
funny.
old.
Never ends. But you need to have a broad spectrum, full court press against these people at every level, however you can do so.
It really just goes to show the importance of making friends, because the only reason why they are in these positions to begin with, the only reason why we have a FBI director, the only reason why we have our Department of Justice being heavily influenced by the subcontinentals, is because they made sure to make friends early on. We should do that for us at every level. And if you aren't yet involved, now is the time to do it.
Pete, you've been rather quiet. What are some of your thoughts on some of these issues?
I mean,
I can hear the
I think-
exhaustion already.
Yeah, I think I said in the in our group chat that I've said this multiple times. It almost seems like the whole people like Harmeet Dillon and her crew are like a psyop to get us to forget about Central Americans, because it's like, okay, are we making a choice here? Because they're so, her and her people are so vile. And, I mean, I interviewed an Indian gentleman, Giant Bandari, on my show. And, what he said was, you just haven't met the average one yet. I mean, it's when you see what's happened to other countries, when you see what happens wherever they go, it's just, and when you see like Canada right now, I mean, you talk to Dimes all the time. It's, I mean, I don't know. If we have people dying on the highways, and highways are being backed up because these people, it's been shown that India has these diploma mills even for like med school, and that was found out in Canada the hard way. We have CDL mills here, and I don't think we realize just exactly how dangerous and how basically we have these insanely heavy missiles flying down the highway just waiting to kill people, kill Americans.
I saw an interesting idea
The
floated a while
horrifying
back on how this could be stopped rather effectively and rather quickly. We have a red wall in this country that runs all the way up and down the middle. If all these Republican strongholds, ranging from North Dakota to Texas, decided to stop and inspect every single 18-wheeler traveling cross country that crossed their borders and detain every single one who had a CDL that was given to them on false premises, this would disappear overnight. There would be no more issue with unqualified CDL drivers causing mayhem on our roads.
Yeah, there was a tweet not too long ago. I think it was earlier last month that had said, it was Justin Trudeau talking about getting into office 10 years ago and what had changed. And I had said, he had effectively speed ran the Great Replacement in 10 years, something that's taken America, roughly 65 years or so to get us to where we're at now. And they've done it more or less in 10. And keep in mind, Canada's population is roughly the size, if not a little less or a little more than California's. But, the thing also, too, when it comes to, this issue in particularly, not just with, say, like, the diploma mills or the numerous academic cheating scandals that happen over there, then allow them to come here. I like how he's described himself. I like what he had said at the national conference, Brother Jay, or as he goes on Twitter, the Capitalissimo, who I quite like. He is quite, he's an ideas man, but he's a man who is very experienced in dealing with policy. And he had put out a very interesting proposal earlier, I think it was last week. And he had said, when a driver's license is issued in any state, the state must query the National Driver's Register in DR, which is operated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which is part of the Department of Transportation, a cabinet-level agency of the executive branch. Participation in the NDR is mandatory if states want to receive federal highway funds. For example, Minnesota received $917 million this year in 2025. The president could issue an executive order tomorrow mandating the cross-checking of all NDR queries with the DHS's Systemic Alien Verification for Entitlement SAVE database, flagging immigration status violations and issuing denials on that basis. Non-compliant states will lose their federal highway funding. This is the same mechanism we use federal highway funding to ensure that every state has the same drinking age at 21, lest they face the consequences of having their budget taken. Most of you in your civics class knows this as coercive federalism. But, there's a very popular meme put out there by, the Twitter account Because We Live Here and numerous others, that there is a just fix everything switch. You can flick that switch. There are ways to actually solve this problem. And it is incredibly frustrating that we have the tools in front of us, but they are held by people that have willingly or have accepted that this is just the way that things are, and that change is not something they're too concerned about. Despite the fact that, Tim Walz has decided to sign in Minnesota a driver's license for all that allows illegal aliens to obtain government-issued photo IDs for free, and that state elections, they can vote in them. But hey, I'm sure that won't have a role in Minneapolis elections or anything else like that. But if you're not following Capitalissimo, you really should, not only because he offered numerous things that the administration could fix overnight, but he's the host of a great show called The Library of Mass Destruction. He hosts it with our friend Christopher Sandbach. And they cover things like what went down in Oklahoma City, as well as Jolly West and numerous other characters that you should really be investigating.
Well, it's like Pete said earlier. There is, like you just said, a fix everything switch. But the GOP will not flip that switch because they are entirely staffed, or almost entirely staffed, with feckless cowards who either A, are scared of that switch, or B, have a vested interest in continuing the destruction of America. And the only way that we'll be able to ever flip that switch in any meaningful sense is if, like every other victory that we've had in recent times, we have to drag the GOP over the line, kicking and screaming the whole way. And then we have to continue to chimp as they try to go back across the line.
And maybe that's what it takes.
The hard part of the entire fight is that we just have to continually keep fighting and fighting and fighting for all of these incredibly simple and common sense battles that, you know, to any sensible person would make total and perfect sense, but to the GOP is just a impossibility. But we just have to continue to fight that battle.
Yeah, my frustration has no limits because I understand how vast and how, again, as we saw with the first Trump administration, you saw countless thousands of alt accounts, alt Department of Transportation, alt national parks rise up. And also, I get it, Schedule F has been implemented, or at least they're trying to, and even firing judges like Judge Boasberg, who I know Representative Brandon Gill has filed articles of impeachment, but good luck. Government shut down over the simple fact that Democrats want to continue to give health care paid by your taxes to illegal immigrants. But, to acknowledge these things, of course, is by the left, open endorsement for them to target you and to kill you. We saw this already when it comes to the issue of the attorney general's race, or I think it's lieutenant governor in Virginia. I think that's a big issue there when it comes to, like, he's openly said he would love to kill a Republican and his kids, and he would probably take pleasure in it. In the midst of the greatest public speaker the right has had in a long time on the issues of confronting liberals on their ideology, he was shot. And by the way, the transgender furry lover of the alleged Charlie Kirk assassin has been missing from the FBI for over 3 weeks. They don't know where this person is.
Most likely in witness protection.
Most likely, probably. Potentially in witness protection. God knows where. But it illustrates... Never existed, right?
Got reassigned to a different
case. We don't know. And it's the lack of answers, but it's also the fact that the FBI, as we've seen also with congressional investigations, that they had no problem having the entire federal law enforcement apparatus go after Republicans, go after conservatives, go after people who weren't even in Washington, D.C. on J6, not to mention the countless people that were held in and given basically political prisoners. Now, I'm glad that Trump had pardoned them and had gone forward with that. But nevertheless, there is so much of this Leviathan that has openly declared half this country, actual Americans, as enemies, and have no problem endorsing and no problem supporting, financially or otherwise, the people that will go out and actually take action to kill you. Whether it is the, glorification of Luigi Mangione, the countless number of people that have already mocked Mr. Kirk as a Halloween costume or have openly celebrated it. I'm very glad to see people on Twitter go after these people and try and go after them and dox them and cancel them. But I want to keep in mind that you had people like Benny Johnson go through the FCC and Orrin McIntyre getting all the sponsor numbers to even try and cancel Jimmy Kimmel. The guy walked away with a slap on the wrist. The right does not have the cultural, firepower that it needs to have. And that is the effort, and that is the charge that lays before us here. And I think, again, the theme that you guys had at the East Coast Conference is very, very fitting, because my frustration leaves me often with beyond words, and my blood pressure is already through the fucking roof.
Well, since I'm here, I'm just going to raise a quick point that I also made during the Q&A section of my speech. There are many people in America today who are very hopeful that soon there shall be a Caesar in this country and he will make everything right. But it's important to keep in mind that Caesar did not cross the Rubicon alone. Alexander the Great did not conquer all of continent. These great men of history, they had friends, capable, honorable, ambitious friends, who all of them were leaders in their own right. Alexander had his companion cavalry, Napoleon had his marshals, and Caesar had his generals. What we need in this country is for every honorable man who values justice, who values Christian principles of honor and faith to their country, faith to their people. We need them to cultivate a sense of leadership within themselves, to take authority of their own lives and how they conduct themselves with people around them, and to show that they are willing and capable of leading in the small realm and in the larger realm. It is only when we have cultivated an entire culture of leaders that we may see a Caesar. It's on you to do this. You cannot wait for someone else to take the reins on your behalf. You have to do it. But you can't do it alone. And the best way to find friends is to reach out to your local Old Glory chapter.
Yeah, we are Americans. We do things. We don't stand around and wait for a leader to magically appear. We get our boys together and we do things. And we build upward from there. That's how America was born. That's, how the committees of correspondence propped up during the revolution, and that's how all the prominent figures started to interface and built a system upwards from there. Americans act. We don't wait around. So it's like
They will support you. And they will take opportunities if you present them to them. This country
And
was
just
built by men of agency. You have to show some agency.
And just because certain people aren't announcing what they're doing, it doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. It just means they're smart enough to not talk publicly about what they're doing. If you need to talk publicly about what you're doing, you're bragging, and it's probably not working. I mean, let's just get that right out there. If you need to tell people about I did this and I accomplished this, and okay, so you just told everybody what you're doing. Don't be fucking stupid. Don't be retarded. It's amazing the kind of things that people and groups can accomplish if you don't want credit for it. That's something that's a fucking saying to live by.
Well, let's go on and hit the last couple of super chats here, and then I'm going to end this show on somewhat of a humorous note for the evening here. But carrying on from the super chats, we finished off, I think, right down here, round 2. Man, I'm so glad our intern in the back room is doing that. Gentleman by the name of Imagine My Lack of Shekel. What a great name. Is it a coincidence that they portray Trump as Master Chief the same week that 3i/Atlas makes its approach? I think not. Unless they're showing up with intergalactic EPT card, those aliens are in for an ass kicking. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really coincidental that they were doing the Halo posting in the midst of the Halo Studios' announcement that they were remaking Halo CE. Keep in mind, when someone calls you a tourist of a particular fandom or something that you like doing and things such as that, I want you to understand that that's just a leftist telling an original fan of something that you're not welcome here, because we've thoroughly gayed the place up and it's not for you anymore. When people like that say, oh, this wasn't made for you, they mean it. They don't want you there. They want you kicked out of the things that made it great. And we've seen this time and time again, whether it's a sequel or a reboot or a series revival, it is meant to humiliate the characters and things like that made it great. And it is meant to tell you that it's for everybody. No, not everything is made for everybody. There are things clearly not for everybody. And it's gotten so bad that the greatest list of video games the last 15 years are all on a great list of things called Troon-coded games. I'm sorry, Fallout New Vegas is not fucking for you. I don't care what anyone says. I don't know if it has to do with the release of AI, but I just thought it was funny to watch everyone shriek. Because I'm sorry, like I grew up in a time where everything was compared to fucking Harry Potter, and I'm begging you to read another book, play another fucking video game, get out of the things that I like. It's that straightforward. If you don't like it, too bad. It's not for you. It's not for you, and I won't let you take it. I'm sorry, but like the pride flag and the cat ears will go. It must stop. Vulpes Persona for $10 says, just sends a salute. I greatly appreciate it. Aramaic Discourse. I'm not going to read that one out loud for obvious reasons, but I'll let the text be on there for everyone to get a little linguistic lesson. Bolero 393 says Diwali stinks for $5. I agree. Who's that guy that they've been trying to like cancel? Anthony Oliveira, for going to one of these festivals where they throw the poop at everybody. They've been trying to cancel him. They've been photoshopping his mother into unseemly things. This is what happens. There are more Indians than any other people on Earth. They have surpassed the Chinese in terms of population, and there are enough Indians that they could effectively colonize every other country on Earth and still have more people in India left over to more or less take over the rest of the world. So
I'm just going to say it. The Chinese were right to block off the entire rest of the world. Because that way you don't have to deal with the subcontinent.
The Himalayas are there for a reason, everybody. God put them there for a reason.
The great what? The Great Firewall of China.
It's true. So
What a
true.
thing.
Oh man, there's a lot more super. I scroll down and there's even more super chats. City Breakdancer Man, I like that name. Sends a salute for $5. Greatly appreciate it. Not Grim for $4.99. He says, as a mutt, part native Indian, Italian, Germanic, Afro-American, Irish, Honduran, just know that I support your guys and your sovereignty for years. Well, we appreciate it, and as long as a good mutt can get some things done. But
We love our mutts.
We appreciate the effort, Not Grim. I thank you. Not Grim also continues. They tried to program me to support the oppressed. I ended up doing just that, but it wasn't the oppressed they wanted. Keep up the good fight. That is, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We always, I do agree. This is sort of maybe this is a hot take, but I think when America finally regains its sovereignty, there will be a sort of a wall or a statue dedicated to the righteous mutts and foreigners that supported our cause. I think of that Shanyandra Bryant guy who's like very anti-Indian despite being an Indian. I feel like he gets a name on that wall, and so will you, Not Grim. But carrying on with the super chats here, our gold star winner, one of our greatest supporters, and a man who I've met in person who is an absolute gentleman, Paladin YYZ, for $200. That is incredibly generous, sir.
Whoa, buddy.
Real Americans.
Yeah, that's right.
Patriot.
Real American, an absolute
true.
patriot. He says owner-operators back in the 2000s were fed up with NAFTA recruits into the trucking industry. This is an old problem with no cure in sight. The same trucking companies that were hiring anybody with two arms are currently featured in various YouTube compilations of trucker accidents today. That is true. It's been a long problem for decades. It's just gotten worse. Because, again, places like California, places now like Minnesota, they're happy to let this go on. And they don't care who dies. They really don't.
Or remember, I mean, the FT and NAFTA stands for free trade. And even though your Austrian economist and libertarian types will tell you, well, that's not free trade. Free trade would be if the government didn't exist. Basically what this is free trade leads to globalism every single time, and globalism just leads to your borders being wide open, because when you treat everything like a commodity, when all you care about is business and profit and everything, human beings are just another commodity to be traded. And that's why you're not going to have Walmart or Publix, big companies be against immigration, because that is just more customers for them. So
it's like Sam Hyde said, when we get these foreigners coming over here and trying to throw definitions at us, like, no, we're not playing that game. We're not doing that. Just shut up. you're getting called a slur.
But no, this is a long-standing structural problem, and the rate of accidents and roadside fatalities have. I mean, we can watch a statistical increase with every relaxation of laws. Trucking is one of the most important, vital logistic industries in the entirety of the United States. I deal with it very closely where I currently work at. It's very important, and we cannot tell you how that executive order about English language proficiency has reduced the amount of lost product where I'm at. The amount of volume that I have to deal with logistically it's insane. So no, Paladin's absolutely right. This has been a long-standing problem. We've just seen the type of the scale only get worse. The Mighty Balzac for $2 Australian. In Virginia, 2 spooks are running for governor. Ain't that the case? Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Blue Jay 162 for $5 says, salute. I'm the gent of a certain competition that was at the event last weekend. Thanks for being chill. It was a great event and very inspiring. I'm not even going to ask, but I'm glad that you had a good time. And then the last super chat so far is from Jackson Walker. He sent $7 American. He says, remember Reach, and remembering Reach, I do. And don't you forget it. But on that point, we're kind of in a very strange place because the mayoral election is right away. Actually, just a whole bunch of elections are about to happen. I'm sure we'll be covering those next week, whether it's God knows what happens to New York. And New York City's mayoral election is the epitome of what happens when the demographic reality hits you. It is foreign-born New Yorkers that support Mamdani the most, while as native New Yorkers and those who are Americans actually would support Cuomo in this instance. And that overall,
well, there's a very certain big population in New York that supports Mamdani, even though certain
the Brooklynites
of their co-ethnics will say, no, how can you support him? He's a communist. Oh, really? So you're against communism?
Huh.
That's suspicious.
It gets the noggin jocking, Pete. I can't help but notice things. But yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does come to show when the demographic reality comes crashing down with our democratic process. The only place where it seems like we're still fighting the battle of Ellis Island is the gubernatorial election in New Jersey, where every election in New Jersey is the ongoing battle between the Mick and the Wop. And Italians and Irishmen on the on the Republican and Democratic sides, respectively, are currently at it. So Cicciarella versus I think it's like Mickey or Nikki Sherrill, who's of Irish descent. They're going at it to the polls this November, and of course, what's going on in Virginia. These things, of course, don't really necessarily give us the portents of what's happening for future elections. But as we've said on the show before, every election is just a census of who can bring the most bodies of their respective group to go vote. It is the dirty little secret of American democratic politics. Not Grim says, that's more than what I'm worth, but thank you, Prude. Well, I try to be complimentary to the people who give us money and support our operations, so I appreciate it very much, Not Grim. But I want to end the show on a funny note because the guys at the Old Glory Club social media team are really good at what they do. I mentioned the whole, pro eggnog posting earlier, but this is probably the most popular tweet we have today, getting a couple of million impressions here. There was a writer a few years ago. This was not Curtis Yarvin, but he took his nom de plume after him, called Mencius Moldbug Man. And Mencius Moldbug Man had made a famous tweet about color-coded bookshelves, and what it was the sign of a midwit and the sign of a woman. And our lovely guys here had made a very good point about this. Nothing says middle of the bell curve like a color coordinating bookshelf. 2.5 million impressions at the time of the screenshot. I'm really happy with how our guys are doing. It's really good. And I think that they did an excellent job showing this off. And the replies, they're really good. So I do want to give my shout out to the Old Glory Club's social media team. They're fantastic. I really like those guys. They're doing a really good work at promoting our work, but also promoting our friends, whether it's our friends over at the JBS or fellow patriots just like yourself supporting and watching this stream right now. But well done. And again, if you walk into some girl's apartment and you're about to have coffee or tea, or you're getting to meet her parents and dog and everything like that, and you see a color-coded bookshelf, please know, middle of the bell curve, run away, do the right thing.
Are you even a reader, somebody who always has their nose in a book. If you don't have your library completely full, books stacked on top of books and books stacked on the floor. I mean, come on. Everyone everyone I know who I consider to be well read, very few have a library that is even orderly, much less color coded.
Glancing over at the stacks upon stacks of books overflowing from my shelves.
I just can't
Yeah,
help but
I
think-
know how that feels.
I strongly suspect the people that color coordinate in their library are those that lack internal monologue.
You're onto something there, Impressario. You're onto something there. But I'm going to check the super chats here one more time, and I think we're good to go. So, with that being said, gentlemen, you said that you were going to have another East Coast forum next October.
That is the
All
plan.
right, I may have to go to that one. I'm really looking forward to attending more conferences because I'll have a lot more free time next fall. So I'm really
would've-
glad
yeah.
that'll happen.
Yeah, I would have been there if I didn't have something planned for next weekend. So
Yeah, see, there you go. Lots of stuff going on around the country with us guys. So we always, keep your eyes peeled and your ears close to what we put out. I mean, this is when you get to meet like-minded friends, you get to meet people in your state, and you never know. You'll always be surprised when you show up to these things. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's you." And they're always kind of surprised like which Twitter poster or which Substack writer or whoever they like is present. And you're always the people who always surprise me are the guys with little to no social media. Who want to be here because they're like reply guys. They believe in these things. And turns out those are the guys that are the most connected business wise or have experience dealing with government, have experience actually implementing policy on a local and state level. Those are the guys I love meeting. As much as I love Pete, as much as I love Dave and all the other big social media and the big writers and content creators, it's the guys that I don't know who always impress me. And every single person I've ever met at these events, I swear, my yes is yes here, that they are always well-to-do, attractive, either married, about to get engaged, civically engaged and civically minded, religious, and are dedicated to this country's future and its success. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So, I've been going to conferences like this now for several years, and I'm always impressed by who shows up. And I'm sure if I ever get the chance to meet you, I will also be impressed. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. Mr. Quinones, what do you have coming up on your end, on your personal work?
I just released today an episode with Carl Dahl talking about the assassination of Cavella Sotelo. Never remember his name. It's Jose Calvo Sotelo, which basically was the helped to kick off the Spanish Civil War. And watch for Sunday. I have an episode dropping with Martyr Maid talking about World War I, about his first episode of Enemy, and looking at World War I and bringing it forward and talking about just how basically it was tagged as the war to end all wars, and basically it was the war. It turned out to be the war to start all wars. So watch for that.
Well, I'll be looking forward to that for sure. What do the gentlemen over here down below us have? Impressario, what are you currently working on? Or what is your Old Glory Club chapter working on?
What are we working on? Well, we're making plans for our big Christmas party. And this season is going to be a special one. So if you're in Virginia, keep your eyes open for that. I myself, like I said, I do photography. So if you're looking for a photographer, check out my website, impressive.com, IMMPRESSIVE.com. Otherwise, working on projects.
Well, I'll be sure to make sure that we have your website at least linked down below in the description afterwards. And then last...
And I can personally attest to Mr. Impressario's photography skills. They're fantastic.
That is true.
I can as well.
Yeah. He did the recording and photography work at the national conference, and I would not look as good as I do speaking at for my speech if not for his excellent camera work. So I can definitely attest to that. And then Horatius, what are you working on, and what is your chapter working on?
Certainly. So the Nathaniel Green Society, we're continuing our weekly shows. You can find those over on our YouTube channel. And then likewise, we are putting on a large public event down here just outside of Raleigh on Veterans Day, November 11th. All information for that can be found in the pinned tweet on our Twitter account. So if anybody is in the area, anybody wants to make the drive, we'd love to have you out there. William Wolf and Stephen Wolf will both be headlining that event. We're hoping to get some good networking in. It'll be a fairly low-key event, but really looking forward to that. Other than that, we've got a lot of stuff planned for the end of this year and then going into 2026. So we got some big stuff on the horizon.
Well, that's also really good to hear. I'm really glad that the Nathaniel Green Society. You guys have had some really great guests on your spaces and what you guys have been doing. I'm always impressed by what our chapters are doing. So if you're interested and you're on that side of the coast, by all means, go check them out and go see what they're doing. All future work here in the Old Glory Club. We've got Chapter House. We have American Spirits coming up this Monday. Of course, we will return with Pony Express Radio next Thursday, same time as usual. But ladies and gentlemen, to all of those who are listening, do not give up the ship. We have only yet just begun to fight. There is so much more that we have to do, and I think that the theme of their conference is very accurate. The charge and the course has been laid before us. I would not be here hosting, I would not be here speaking if I did not believe that victory was possible. If not for me, at least for my grandchildren, who will sit under a vine and fig tree I plant, and they will not be afraid. So continue the good fight, stay the course, finish the race, and believe in the America that you want to see for yourself and for your future. God bless.